Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian, and today we're taking a look at 10 of my favorite rye whiskeys of the year. This is an interesting list. I tried to break things down, and again, leave me a message down below if you watched all these videos, what you thought about the way that I did my list this year. But I tried to break things down into different categories, and I ran into some difficulties with this one because I wanted to keep finished products out, but some finished products in here, like a double oaked or a toasted or something like that, ended up on this list. Others I did section out, they're not featured on this list. All the whiskeys I'm making on this list are all enjoyable in their own right, and any of them would be good to pick up. So I am tasting through some ryes this year. As I was doing my roundup, I started to realize, man, there are a lot of ryes that came from MGP this year. So however you feel about MGP ryes, take that in consideration when it comes to this list. I'd love to hear some of your favorite rye suggestions down in the comments below. Let me know some things that I missed. Right off the bat that I'll go ahead and mention, I didn't get a chance to try very many Sagamore ryes, but during the Pursuit Spirits had a Pursuit Palooza earlier this year, and I was able to try a couple of finished Sagamore ryes that I loved, but I didn't get my hands on a bottle of it, so they're not included in this list. But those were really, really good. I wish I had some more time with that. And then I saw that New Riff had come out with the 8-year of the malted rye. Now, the barrel strength malted rye, I didn't really enjoy, but the 6-year 100 proof malted rye is one of my favorite New Riff products they put out. So I really am optimistic to try that 8-year, just see how it's changed in those 2 years, but I was not able to pick that up. It's not featured here on the list. Another one too that I feel like could have been featured on the list was the Angels Envy Cash Strength. I didn't get a bottle. I didn't spend much time sipping it. So it's not featured on this list here. So let's go ahead and jump into number 10. I feel like with a list like this, number 10 sounds like it's the worst. And that's not really the case. These are really good. It's actually pretty tight running for these rye whiskeys, but we'll go ahead and start with number 10, and then it happens to be Barrel Rye Batch 4. This is a blend of Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Canadian ryes. It has upwards of 10-year-old Indiana rye in there. It's got 14-year Canadian rye in there. I was sent a sample of this by my bottle's not been opened because I've been drinking on the sample of this from Barrel. And if I recall correctly, in part of the press release, they were talking about how they hadn't done a barrel rye in quite some time. And I don't feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about this rye. And it took me a while to actually get into the sample of this, but once I did, I went, holy cow, this is an outstanding rye. I don't know why I don't see more people talking about this. Really complex, really nuanced. I could see this given like another person, or if you hadn't tried some of these other bottles or whatever, I could see this scoring really high for a lot of people, being some folks top 10s, top 3s. This is really, really good. Brown sugar, again, herbal, citrus, fruitiness, and surprisingly a lot of oakiness too. I feel like the rye blends are some of my more favorite blends to try, only because there's so many different styles that you're getting. You get, I think, really herbal, strong ryes coming out of Canada, but a lot of people are like, it's not Canadian. If it's Canadian rye, I don't really like it. Indiana, you're generally getting that strong 95 with some Kentucky. Sometimes you're getting a little bit more sugary profile, even though we got Kentucky 95.5s as well. There's just so much that can be done when you have a good blender, and Barrel is a great blender. And this is one you shouldn't miss. If you're into ryes, I highly suggest trying this one. This is Barrel Batch 4. The placement on these are actually pretty tough. I feel like there's just so much good flavor of rye. It really depends. Do you like spice? Do you like kind of a little bit of brown sugar, kind of like barely rye type profile? Are you herbal? That's going to be like the differentiator between a lot of the ryes that we keep tasting. But coming in number 9, we have is a seal box pick, but a lot of groups, stores did this. The Tiz Ryes is the 7-year Pinhook rye single barrel. So again, this particular one's a single barrel. I've tried other single barrels. Yeah, there's some variance in flavor, but this one right here, really fruity, like a kind of a fruit explosion. Still has some really good kind of vanilla desserty type notes, kind of like some Boston cream pie type notes, but then finishes with some of the rye herbal characteristics, but it's not necessarily the forefront main profile, and that's something I like in rye. So coming in number 9 was this Pinhook 7-year rye whiskey. Moving into number 8 is the most different of the bunch. That happens to be the Toasted Fiddler rye whiskey. This one has this kind of honey graham cracker, heavily toasted marshmallow note to it, heavily creamy. A lot of times if I have a finished or a toasted MGP product, I feel like it has this kind of clove, lemon oil, and this has those typical characteristics to it to other products like that, but that overly kind of charred, toasty marshmallow note, I think really made this stand out a little bit this year. Other groups have done single barrel picks of this, but this is definitely one that's really interesting to try. 6 years old, double barrel cask strength. That is the Toasted Fiddler. I mentioned this in the bourbon video, and maybe I'm living under a rock. Coming in at 7th place, Luca Mariano single barrel rye. Again, this is a single barrel, so your miles may vary, but when I looked on the back, this is distilled and aged in Kentucky. It's over 8 years old. It was a really affordable price on this too. And I don't think this is single barrel like a store pick or anything like that. They just come in at single barrels, 103 proof. And this is robust, big age, brown sugar, good nuance. Honestly, this could be higher on my list given the day, but the finish maybe is just a little quick for me, which is during my tasting why I put it where I did. But a fantastic bottle from a brand that I feel like I don't hear a lot of people talking about. I love this bottle. For any of those who are curious, this is barrel number 5, Luca Mariano single barrel rye. This is a bottle I feel like I didn't hear a ton of people talk about, and it is more on the spicy side of things, but this was the Stellum Rye, the Fibonacci. Maybe this wasn't actually released this year. I have tried other Stellum Ryes this year, but they're kind of in the same category. I just grabbed this one because I had it available. I had the Lone Cypress as well. The Lone Cypress, maybe I actually preferred more than this, but I finished my sample of it, so this is the only one I had to go to. But these Stellum Rye blends are just really great if you want a big, spicy rye. I felt like I mentioned that when I first had tasted the regular Shelfer Stellum Rye as well. A lot of baking spices, a lot of complexity, but there's some good sweetness there as well. And honestly, just a great, this makes a great old fashioned. This is great for cocktails, especially if you want a little bit more proof, but I think it's a really enjoyable sipping rye. While sometimes I gravitate towards the sweeter ones, if I want something a little bit spicier, these Stellum Ryes are fantastic. Coming in number 5, and I'll explain its placement in a minute, is the Jack Daniel's single barrel proof rye. You can tell that my bottle's not opened. I've tried several of them so far this year, and I loved it when it came out as a limited product a couple years ago. It was one of my favorites. Had a lot of great flavor. However, these are single barrels, so while they're affordable, I think where you can find them, and the Jack Daniel's Ryes just have so much flavor, like all these Christmas spices met with honey, brown sugar, all of that's really, really enjoyable. Sometimes you run into a dud, and I have this year both had really awesome bottles. I think I have tried from this bottle that I really enjoyed, and I've had 2 other single barrels I did not like at all. They were like big, hot, peppery, cinnamon, and so for the fact of like what I had, enjoyability, this is a really great rye compared to like some of the other ryes on this list, but your miles may vary, and you kind of have to go in knowing that it is a single barrel product, so you might run into something that you don't think is actually that good. So take my words with a grain of salt. These are hit and miss. I personally have experienced that. You might as well. And that's kind of why I right in the middle of the list. If you find a good one, it's great. If you find a bad one, it's bad. I have this in number 5, this Jack Daniel's single barrel proof rye. You heard me talk about it in my top rare and limiteds. It is the most allocated one you're gonna see on this list here, so I'm sorry about that. I'll put it in number 4. This is the Parker's 10-year rye whiskey. When I'm just kind of tasting through as a rye, I feel like it's better to compare it to other ryes on the market than it is to compare it to rare and limited releases. Again, I wish there was a little bit more to it. I wish there was either a little bit more oak. Oak's great and balanced. If you're not a super big oak fan and you like ryes, well-aged ryes, you're gonna have a really good experience with this bottle. Almost any flavor that you're wanting to search for, it's quite possible that you're gonna find in this bottle. It's big, it's robust, it's fruity, it's candied, sugary, good amount of oak. Changes a lot as the glass is poured and you sit with it, changes a lot as the bottle's open, really evolving, hard to pin down. I think that's why it is where it is. This is number 4 on the list, but that means that there are other ones I like more than that, and I'm excited to get into those. Parker's 10-year rye whiskey. Had a really hard time with this next one. I feel like it could be number 1. I feel like these next 3, it just depends on kind of your flavor profile or what you're kind of expecting. Will make more sense when we get to the end. But what we have at number 3 is the 15-star fine aged rye. Now, what's interesting, I think I thought that this was just MGP. However, this is 6, 7, and 8 year Ryes that are distilled in Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. So it is a really interesting true blend, 6 years old. This comes in at 105 proof and it drinks above it. If you want a little bit more oak to come through, but you like some sweetness, you don't want it to not taste like a rye though, this is wonderful, wonderful rye that I feel like did pretty good in an award. I forget what exactly it won recently, but I don't hear a ton of people talk about it. I feel like given a different day, very easily could be #1 on this list. This is an excellent, excellent rye whiskey. If you've not heard about it, or you're into ryes, or you want to try something new, 15-star fine aged rye. Wonderful, wonderful rye. Okay, this is where again the lists get kind of weird. I didn't plan to do this. I don't want to do this. I didn't really want to have products that cross over lists, but this is featured on 2 lists, and that happens to be the Pursuit Spirits Pursuit Series Rye Whiskey 062. So this was a pick that we did for Sealbox. Admittedly, I work with both Sealbox and Pursuit. I want to say that for transparency's sake, but we went and we were picking lucky 7 barrels, and Ryan from Pursuit showed up and was giving us a flight of ryes to try. Unanimously, we ended up going with this one. It was super unique. It comes out of Kentucky, but this one cask strength is 89.4 proof. And man, if you're looking for a rye with a bit more oomph or staying power, like some of the other ones I've mentioned, you're not going to find this here. But if you're looking for something that is so off profile, different, this is like an Old National Distillers kind of funky, dusty profile. It's very weird. It's a little dry and short on the finish, and I feel like that's kind of characteristic with some older dusty pours. But what you run into just in the experience, the fullness of everything, is it overly oaky or anything? No, it's not. But for being a modern made whiskey, it's like a snapshot in time to a different time than we're in. And it's just an incredible pour. Again, you can see that my bottle's not open for the haters too. This is what I've been sipping on most of the time. This is what we pulled right before it got bottled. And I've been drinking that down before having to open my bottle because this is the only one that I have. And I know that it will go really quick once I do, as you can tell by everything that I've drank in here. But really unique rye. Super glad to have this one. Again, sorry for the crossover on the list. You can just scratch this out for the list and say it's the top 9 of the year if you want to on this. But really fun single barrel. #2, Pursuit Spirits with the Pursuit Series 062. If you catch any of the stuff that I post or do with Sealbox, this one came in. I had no idea about it. We do have a single barrel that's releasing here soon, but this one was a small batch that came in. This was the 8-year barrel proof small batch tumbling dice rye coming in at #1. This one took me by surprise. I just thought there's no reason this rye that's accessible, I want to say it's like $80. There's no reason this rye tastes this good. There's why I need to tell more people about this. This is more people need to be on to this accessible rye. Man, it was fantastic. I think now we are sold out of it. Super creamy, a lot of vanilla, huge baking spices, brown sugar underneath, a lot of age present kind of charred wood oak there. This is something that if you had this in a premium bottle, you would charge a premium price. People would say, that's fantastic. In my head, the first thing that I kind of go to, even though I think it's probably a different source, this is Indiana, but in my head, the first thing I went to is like, this is Kentucky owl rye level kind of stuff. Like it kind of reminded me of that with the oakiness, but also kind of very clean and nice herbal characteristics. This was a fantastic rye. I can't stress it enough. I hope maybe it's something that you have access to or can find, whether it's locally or market dropping or something like that. But the Tumbling Dice 8-year small batch rye. Again, we have a single barrel coming, but I think I like the small batch more. I'll have to try the single barrel again soon to see. But this, while all the top 5 were really great in their own way, I kept coming back to this one. It kept doing well in my tastings. This is the Tumbling Dice Straight Rye Whiskey Small Batch 8. Thanks everybody for tuning into another video, but I want to hear from you all down below. Let me know what some of your favorite rye whiskeys have been this year. Let me know if you've tried any of these and what your all's experiences have been with them. Thanks for tuning in to yet another wrap-up video, guys. I hope you checked out the bourbon or the top rare limited or the craft whiskey, all the things I'm putting out. I'm doing it in hopes that you guys are enjoying the content and you're finding enjoyable whiskey Again, not that you have to buy from 2023, but if you're going to check out some of these whiskeys, what are some of the ones that I like the most? Thanks as always for tuning into another video, guys. Until next time, we'll see you all later.